Imagine you're looking at a balancing scale with everything you do for other people on one side and everything you do for yourself on the other side. If it isn't balanced, maybe it's time to spend a little more time on you. And therapy is a great place to start. BetterHelp connects you with a licensed therapist online who can help you find that balance and stick to it. Visit BetterHelp.com/positive to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp.com/positive.
What you watch depends on what kind of mood you're in. Sometimes you're craving comedies like Friends or South Park, and sometimes you're more into dramas like HBO's Succession and House of the Dragon. There's also cooking shows like Chopped and Beat Bobby Flay, and even movies like The Lord of the Rings and Shazam! Fury of the Gods. Well, Max is the streaming destination that has the best of entertainment for whatever mood you're in anytime. And plans start at as little as $9.99 a month. Max, the one to watch. Subscription required. Visit max.com.
All right, welcome back in, everybody. Sports Daily on KFH. Jacob Albrock, Paul Savage with you. Jad Chambers producing. The IHOP hotline is open, 869-1240, and it may feel inclined to get active here because we have some breaking news, Paul. Lauren Hibbs is out, essentially. Wichita State, Kevin Saul sending an email, a letter to fans, to everybody, basically saying they're opening the search up for a new head baseball coach, a national search. I don't get the indication from the release. And I'll retweet that so you can go see it if you haven't seen it. I don't get the indication that Lauren Hibbs is a candidate in that nationwide search. Perhaps he is, but the language certainly wouldn't indicate that for me. There's more thanking he and his staff for navigating this season. And, there's no timeline on the search. There is a line in here that says, while we're certain Hibbs did not return to Wichita with the intent to serve as head coach, we're grateful to his willingness to step forward on short notice, providing invaluable experience and leadership during a time of transition. I haven't ever had the indication that I thought this was going to be long-term, and that's not that I don't think it should be. I probably would have gone with Hibbs for at least a year or two. Here's the interesting part of this, Paul, as now another coach will be hired. Men's basketball, women's basketball, and now baseball. There will not be, I can't imagine, as much support on this one as even there was for basketball. Basketball, the fan base was a little more divided, I think. I would imagine there will be more supporters of Hibbs than in the prior head coaching decisions. And this one probably won't be received as well, if I had to guess, by Shocker fans.
No, you're exactly right. I mean, Hibbs is a Wellington guy. He spent his entire early years here in the state of Kansas. He has deep Kansas roots. I mean, just because he coached in Charlotte, North Carolina for nearly 3 decades doesn't mean that he's no less a Kansan. He is a Kansan, and we understand that. And by the way, Kansas Baseball Hall of Famer, I'll throw that in as well. The statement that was released uttered some words that you rarely hear in these kind of statements or these kind of press releases. In the second paragraph, the paragraph starts out, though these decisions weigh heavy on our hearts because they resulting in blah, blah, blah. These decisions weigh heavy on our heart. Have you ever heard that in a statement where somebody is I don't know.
Yeah, they're brutal.
They're brutal.
They're brutal decisions to make. Lauren Hibbs was named the AAC Coach of the Year. We talked about this a lot Friday because we knew a decision was probably coming very quickly. I got the sense that they were going to go a different direction. Again, it's not that I think that was the right or the wrong decision. It's just the sense I got. And, that's going to be tough. Fans aren't going to like it. Lauren Hibbs was Coach of the Year. But, Paul, they finished 3-8 down the stretch. They did not finish the year strong. It was a mess inherited, which also makes it complicated, right? Things at the end of Wedge's time got messy and complicated, and Hibbs stepped in, and the team, I think we could all agree, overachieved. It's by what degree that, has some debate, I suppose. But this is going to be a tough one, and this is going to be interesting because, again, I don't know that the fan base is going to get behind this one. I would venture to guess that more fans will be upset by this than the men's or women's basketball coaching searches that have happened. And my problem and why I have such a hard time with it, Paul, is like I don't know as much or have as much of an opinion on what goes into making a great college baseball coach. So before I moved to Wichita, college baseball was fun and exciting, but it was never like at the forefront of the things that I covered. It was never at the and in Wichita, it absolutely is with the history, obviously, which is spelled out, in the letter Saul sent to fans and supporters about this decision in the first place. It's just, I don't know what goes into it, and I don't know what drives that success. I have no idea, and so I have to just sort of observe on this one. I really don't have, much to say. I would have tried to get some sort of like short-term deal with Hibbs, but that, what I do know, Paul, is this program has to return to dominance. Like, it just has to. Like, the facilities are there. The history is there. I know that weather is a challenge here now, and a bigger challenge probably than it ever has been before. But this is a bold decision by Kevin Saul, because I don't know that he'll get the support on this that he got with the other programs. I don't know that he will. I certainly won't from the alumni, right? Like, not from the former players and, everybody that's had connections to the program. That support's not going to come. That support would have been in the court of Lauren Hibbs,
right,
and the staff that had so many ties to the university and those sorts of things. That part is going to be difficult, and we'll see that reaction, and we're kind of beginning to see it right now already. But that's coming, and then that'll have to be navigated.
Right, and I think Kevin Saul would be the first to understand. We're talking about a coach who was just named Conference Coach of the Year. I mean, let's face it, this is something you don't see all that often in this kind of situation. Conference Coach of the Year, and you're not going to be retained. But there's more to this than meets the eye. I don't know what it is, and I don't know how this is going to play out. But this is still a prime job when it comes to coaching at the college level. This is one of the best jobs. It's one of the, top at least 4 or 5 stadiums. Wouldn't you say probably a top 5 stadium in the country?
It's hard for me to say because I haven't seen enough of them. It's the best stadium I've ever seen for college baseball outside of, where the College World Series is played.
Right.
Well, I haven't, and I've been to Texas Tech, and it's really nice now that they've done the upgrades. But man, Eck is as good as it gets. It's the nicest I've seen.
I've seen every stadium that's played baseball in the Big 12. I've seen them all, one way or another, going through or recruiting in a particular city or whatever the case might be. And Wichita State is by far the best one, and that includes Baylor, which is a really nice stadium, by the way, but Wichita State's is really something special. But with that being said, expectations will be high, whoever takes this job. We're not over and I say as a baseball fan for Wichita State, we're not past the days of the glory years. We don't think that those days are gone for good. We've seen basketball programs that seem to have slipped off the upper echelon. I mean, teams particularly like we've seen UCLA for years have problems. Indiana, for instance, have problems. Not to those years that they used to be, and that's where they're at. But that's not Wichita State. I don't believe that needs to be the case. When you have the framework for a city that loves baseball, for a city that loves Wichita State baseball, this is a great situation. Assuming that the NIL is competitive with all other baseball operations, which I believe it should be or could be or will be. And so this is a great job. This is one of those jobs that you want. Arizona State's one of those jobs. USC's one of those jobs. There are those jobs out there. I think Clemson, to a certain extent, is getting to be one of those jobs. There are other jobs just like this job, but this is still a great job, and it'll be a first-class coach, whoever they hire. That's one thing I'm positive of, because they don't have to take just any Joe Schmo off the streets to become the head baseball coach here. They'll get somebody of quality. I'm convinced of that.
Well, yeah, this one's hard because there's so much Wichita State baseball history tied into this staff, and that's true. That's what makes it brutal. By the way, if you want to read the letter from Kevin Saul on the decision, you can go to kfhradio.com. We got it right there on the homepage for you. You can check it out. But that's what will make this more difficult than it typically might be, is because of the deep roots of this staff. And that sucks. Like, that's what leaves a pit in everybody's stomach, right? That's what makes it really difficult for everyone. And I just, you feel for them, and you feel for everybody there, and it's good luck to everybody involved. Maybe there's a chance for some retention. Maybe Lauren Hibbs is a candidate for the job still. I don't get the indication from that language, which, by the way, you can go again to kfhradio.com and read that statement. But I don't get the indication this will go in a different direction, I would think, and that's tough. And that's going to be tough to swallow, and it's going to be tough. Whoever the next person is, Paul, they're going to have an added challenge of winning back alumni and fans.
Well,
and, winning cures everything, but
right.
That is going to be an added challenge. I don't know, because I wasn't here for the Gene Stevenson situation. But, this isn't to that degree, but there will be people upset similarly, I think, to a lesser degree, that, this has happened and not given a longer time. It's just the reality of it.
Right. And it's hard on me, and I don't mean to make this personal, because it's not personal. I understand we live in the world of sports. You and I have both signed contracts. We understand what it means to be competitive. I've never had a coaching job that I didn't sign a contract for with certain expectations to meet and those kind of things. So you and I understand the world in which we live in the world of sports and broadcasting for you. And the thing that makes this hard on a personal note for me is that, Mike Pelfrey is on this staff. Mike Pelfrey is a friend of mine. I've known him ever since his days at Wichita State. He's in the Wichita Sports Hall of Fame. Mike Pelfrey makes the 5th Wichita State coach that's in the Wichita Sports Hall of Fame not have a job here anymore. This will be my 5th with Mike Pelfrey. And that breaks my heart, because I like Mike Pelfrey. He's a friend of this show. If you or I ever needed Mike Pelfrey on this show, he'd drop whatever he's doing and come help us out. He would. And that's what I like these guys. I guess I just always feel bad, because a lot of times coaches that around this area, at least in the city of Wichita, that you and I get to know personally, when they're released, it's hard on us. It's hard on their friends.
Everybody.
It's hard on their family. It's hard on everybody, like you say. So,
I agree, and I definitely am, fond of Mike Pelfrey, and I hope that the opportunities don't end for him. He's a Wichita legend.
That's
he's
right.
He's in the Hall of Fame. He's a high school legend. He's a college legend.
Right.
He made the pros. He did well in the pros, like all those things. And he's a good dude and a good family man. And hopefully for everybody on the staff, they can land on their feet. And who knows? Paul, that's the thing too. Like, that's again, like, maybe the next coach understands that and wants to try to, to recapture some of that. And maybe some of the staff is retainable. I have no idea.
I don't
know. All we know right now is that, they're looking, and in the release, right, in the letter, it talks about, all of those guys. And again, the language isn't right now, encouraging for that, but, express sincere appreciation for everybody and all of those things. And so I don't know. We'll see. But the change has been made. I don't think fans are going to be on board with this one. We'll see. And, the pressure's on Kevin Saul to go get somebody to try and get this program to the level it needs to be at, which it hasn't been. And there's no doubt about that.
Right.
I mean, the expectation for the program is conference championships and College World Series.
Bingo. Boy,
and that hasn't been hit. And that's what makes this difficult. But again, kfhradio.com if you want to see the release on that news. Certainly much more on that as this process plays itself out. The College World Series is about to happen. So I don't know enough about college baseball coaching to know how quickly this might move, who the candidates are. No idea. I'm going to have to admittedly defer on that because I just don't know.
Well, and there's a lot we don't know, and that's why we've got to take – listen, you either believe in Kevin Saul or not. I'm at the point where I believe in Kevin Saul. I think he's doing a lot of things that are right, a lot of things that are good. We don't know, and until we know something that is being done, we have to give the benefit of the doubt. Now, I know it's kind of like, you observe, you make notes, you take care of what's going on, you digest it and all that kind of stuff, but we don't really have enough information right now off this press release to know what's what. We just don't know. So, you just got to have some faith that this is all going to work out. Listen, you got a great project, and you got a great property, and you got great things that you can sell about Wichita State baseball, and you go sell them, and you find somebody that can sell them and will sell them and only enhance the product. So, and I've got confidence that that's what's going to happen. There's a reason in everything. I just don't know what it is yet.
Hope everybody lands on their feet.
Absolutely.
Tip of the cap to Lauren Hibbs.
Absolutely.
Tip of the cap to Lauren Hibbs and that staff for the job they did and what they inherited in the season. Absolutely. So we will keep our eye on that. All right, patiently waiting real quick before we take our break to the IHOP hotline. Terry is on the line. Terry, what's up?
Hey, guys. Hey, I just had a chuckle at your coffee talk before this segment. Yeah? And that I'm like you, Jake. I buy 4 or 5 cups of black coffee a day. I've never done the iced coffee. But ran cross country and track in college and then eventually got into ultra marathoning. I've done that for years. And nothing tastes better to me than being out on a trail and pulling into a medical water station during a race and having some hot black coffee.
No way. I've never heard of that. And Jad Chambers is chuckling at that. I've never heard of that. I'm going to have to call on it a little bit. Come on now. I've never heard anybody say that.
Oh, I love hot. I'll drink hot coffee in 100-degree weather. I mean, it's just, but it's something about when you're out there doing something physical. Oh, it tastes so good for some reason when it hits your mouth.
Well,
but hey,
yeah,
guys,
well, I'm not
there. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was just going to say I'm not a runner at all, but yeah, I'm with you. I'll drink the weather outside doesn't inhibit me from wanting hot black coffee in the morning. So go ahead, Terry. What were you going to say?
Just on the Lauren Hibbs situation, since that just came out, listening to you guys, and enjoy your show, by the way. Isn't he, and I'll hang up after I ask this question, but he's already employed by the university in another capacity, correct? This is just an interim job?
I don't know what this does. I really don't. I don't know what this means or does to that, and we appreciate the call, Terry. Thank you. And thanks for the nice words on the show. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
He was in an administrative capacity. So again, these are the parts of this we don't really know. That's why he was here before, and then he took that interim job. It all depends on a lot of things, I would imagine. So we'll have to see on that. I'm not sure what happens with Lauren Hibbs or any of this staff. We'll just have to sort of observe that for a little bit and then see. It's going to be hard on it's going to be hard on the fan base and the alumni to digest this one because they have so much love and appreciation for the members of the staff and everything else that have been a part of the program in recent years.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's a complicated thing when it comes to employment. By the way, athletic employment is different than the regular university, although both are overseen by the university and both academic and athletics are both governed by the university. They're different things. I mean, they're different. There are different types of contracts. The athletic department contracts with their people. Academics contract with their people. So what that means, I don't know. But I am fairly confident in saying, Jacob, that Coach Hibbs is governed by a contract on the athletic side and is not an employee of the other side of the campus.
Yeah, it will be. I don't know. I don't know what to think. We're going to need a little time to digest this, maybe even more than today as we make our way through. But your calls on it are always welcome on the IHOP hotline, 869-1240. Again, Lauren Hibbs and staff seemingly out as Kevin Saul announces today that he will begin a nationwide search. It doesn't read like that nationwide search includes the current coaches. Could be wrong about that. We'll have to see if that's possible. But I'm not sure. You can read that statement, kfhradio.com. We have it up there online for you. We're going to come back. We're going to talk a little football, but we can take more calls on Wichita State baseball. Oh, Chad joined us. I didn't see that. Hey, Chad, we'll get you in here before we take a break. What's on your mind?
Good morning, guys. How you doing?
Good. How are you?
Oh, man. I don't know about this Kevin Saul. I don't know if he can find a better baseball guy than Lauren Hibbs. And isn't that the goal when you fire someone, is to find someone better?
I think that that's going to be the sentiment. It was certainly the sentiment of Tommy on Friday. What are you going to find that's better than Lauren Hibbs and what's done? And I don't even know, like, I suppose this is firing, but it goes back to Paul's question, like, what is is there still an administrative role that you go back to? I have no idea. I doubt it, but I don't know.
Even
and
go
that's
to a
why
baseball game this spring, I wonder. If he didn't watch this team play, where did this decision come from? That's what.
Well, they went three.
Me.
Look, they went 3-8 down the stretch, and I think that hurt that. I think that hurt the chances. I think that they didn't finish strong enough, and that was pretty clear when we talked to Kevin Saul that he was not loving the fact that they were stumbling down the stretch there. But again, my problem with it, Chad, and I'm like, I will absolutely admit it and will continue to do so, because I'm not going to give like a hot take on something I don't know about. I just don't know about that world, that process, what it looks like, what kind of candidates are out there. I have no idea when it comes to a college baseball coach. So I just have to sort of sit here and say, okay. I mean, when they hired Eric Wedge, I was like, well, that's a great idea, right? Ties to the program, all the things. And that didn't work out at all. So I don't know. I'm just going to, I'll plead the fifth on opinion of what makes a great college baseball coach, because I really don't know.
Yeah, part of the problem, Chad, is we don't know what's going on with Coach Hibbs. We don't know. We don't even at this point know that if he wants to be the head coach, or maybe he's just saying, I don't mind staying on with the new staff if you want me. But I mean, there's things that we don't know. And before we start jumping on opinions, Jacob and I, at least in particular, because of this show, we've got some things that we've got to find out, and we just can't speculate. It could end up being a horrible decision. And that's a real possibility if everything falls in line. Bad things could happen from this decision, but it's way too early to know. And until we know why, which we do not know that maybe it's Coach Hibbs doesn't want to do it. We don't know. And so until we know that, it's hard to judge why this is happening. And I think, at least for Jacob and I, we've got to reserve our opinions until we get some inkling of an idea of what the heck's going on. Okay, that's Chad.
Sure.
That's I think that's fair for Jacob and myself.
I agree. I hope it works out for the Shockers.
Well, we do too.
We do too.
We do too.
Ultimately, that's the end game for all of us. The program, we hope to return to a day of former glory, certainly as we watch, regionals and super regionals again without Wichita State participating. That's hard. That's probably why we're sitting here having this conversation. It's not probably. Correct. It is. It is. That part I do know. I do know.
New Year's put up on the stadium, if you know what I mean. I want New Year's down the row. I want more and more
College
years.
World Series.
I want all that stuff. Yeah.
I do too. We all do. We all do, including the staff that was working their tails off to get it done. Right. It's tough. It's a tough day because so many of these guys have so many ties to Wichita State baseball and those glory days. Let's take a quick break. We'll come back. Let's talk a little DeAndre Hopkins. We haven't had a chance since he's become a free agent. 869-1240. More Sports Daily coming for you right after this.
Your phone call is welcome. 869-1240. Sports Daily on 97.5 and 1240. KFH. Wichita's #1 sports talk radio.
All right. Welcome back in. Sports Daily. Here we go. Jacob Albrock, Paul Savage. We're making our way through hour number 2 of this Tuesday. You missed the news. Lauren Hibbs and staff out at Wichita State. National search is underway. You can chime in on that. You can comment on our video streams, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter. You can call us on the IHOP hotline, 869-1240. Let's talk a little NFL football, Paul. We haven't had a chance to talk about DeAndre Hopkins, I don't think, since he's become a free agent. Now, there's a report out that There really were only two suitors for him in the trade market, and it was the Bills or the Chiefs, with any substantive talks with Arizona at the time. The price tag was too high, seemingly, which made sense at the time, right? We all talked about that and how Hopkins made a lot of sense, but what could you give up to get him? And he's an expensive player. Well, now he's just an expensive player, right? Now there is nothing you have to give up because the Cardinals cut him. And you can get him for money, and that's it. You don't have to have any draft capital. And so obviously in that scenario, for a player of his caliber, even at his advanced age and even at his price tag, there are probably going to be plenty of suitors now for DeAndre Hopkins. Now, he has stated multiple times his desire to play for a contender, for a quarterback that's really good and cares about the game, shots fired at Kyler Murray, all that kind of stuff. So knowing that a lot of teams are going to be interested in DeAndre Hopkins, assuming the price tag, and we don't know how that could get negotiated out. But, Paul, if the Chiefs could maneuver it and get him in there, how much sense do you think that makes, and how much urgency do you think there needs to be to explore that for the Chiefs, or are they fine without it and they don't need to pay him that much money? And where do you sit with DeAndre Hopkins?
Well, I saw an article this morning that was basically written within the last 12 hours. And it states that they're still the two teams that are interested are the Bills and the Chiefs. So that's an update.
No, I don't.
That's an update.
I think that's just who was. I think that's just who was going to trade for him. I think there's way more teams now.
Well, now there are, but that's what I saw this morning. But with that being said, this guy does have some baggage. There's a couple small bags attached, and so when you look at this guy, you think to yourself, well, who's equipped to handle somebody like this when they come onto the team, when they join the team, when they're in the locker room, when they're in the weight room, when they're on the field, when they're on the practice field, when they're on the plane going to a game? Who is this guy? Is he somebody that can enhance our program? And of all the programs in the NFL that could handle a guy like DeAndre Hopkins, it would be I think the Chiefs. Because we've seen how they handle people they perceive that's a problem. They get rid of them. Do I need to mention Tyreek Hill comes to mind right off the get-go?
I don't think they get rid. I think the guys generally go there and just they don't have a problem. Like Frank Clark had some problems away from the field, but as a player and in the locker room,
right,
he seemed like he was fine. Like he fit in. So did Tyreek Hill, and Tyreek Hill had far more baggage coming in than even Frank Clark did. Whatever, I guess that's debatable, but they didn't necessarily get rid of Tyreek Hill. They drew their line in the sand and said we're not going to invest our money and make you the highest paid receiver. Tyreek Hill was phenomenal and still has been, by the way, phenomenal since he left. It wasn't, but if they're not, and that's where this really comes into play. Like how much for how long is DeAndre Hopkins going to cost you? So his contract is kind of like just this year. And here's where I'm fascinated by the DeAndre Hopkins situation. Like is Hopkins himself ready to go right now and make as much money as he can this season? Or would he potentially be willing, right, to sort of have a prove it kind of year, maybe? It's an interesting situation with DeAndre Hopkins, and he's a free agent in 2025, but I don't like the NFL contracts get so complicated that I don't know like what can still be managed out of this contract, how much is actually owed, I should say. Like if a team signs him, how much wiggle room and creativity is there with that? Like it's all very tricky. And the Chiefs don't have much money. They have the smallest wiggle room in their cap space of any team in the NFL. They have like $1 million, and guess who's second to last? The Bills, right? So the two teams who could definitely use a player of his caliber to put him over the edge can't afford him in their current, can't afford him in the current market. Teams like the Bears, the Panthers, the Colts, the Lions, they all have some money. The Jets, by the way, which is really interesting. The Texans. I think the Browns become a relatively interesting team in this, a potential reunion with Deshaun Watson. I just don't know because I don't fully have a grasp on what it's going to cost you to do it. Like, what do you have to pay all of that money right now? Because that's going to take a lot of teams out of the mix. Or is there flexibility and creativity there? Because it's going to have to take that for these premier teams to even consider it.
Yeah, and all those teams are going to take those kind of things into consideration. The one consideration that we haven't talked about yet is obviously DeAndre Hopkins' mindset on how important is a ring to him. Is it the Bills? Is it the Chiefs? Are these two teams that you would want to go to? I think both these teams will be contenders over the course of the next few years as to winning a Super Bowl championship. And Hopkins is 30 years old. I mean, he's had a nice career. But it's been a fairly long career in terms of, the years played in the NFL. How bad does he want to ring? How bad does he want to play for a contender? How bad does he want to be in the playoffs and try to win that elusive ring? Because the ring is so important to so many players. I get it. I know why. I understand that. But I think this is also interesting with regards to his mindset. Does he want to go where the money is? Does he want to go have a chance to win a championship? I think those are questions that we don't know yet. We don't know where his mind is. Perhaps he's made enough money in his career where, he'll take maybe a little less. And it's not like he's going to take a fortune less. He's going to take a little less maybe to sign with one of the teams that have a shot. And maybe that's where he is in his life. Maybe it's not totally about, the biggest payday I can get. Maybe it's not about that. So I think there's still some questions out there that we need to know the answers to, and maybe even there's some questions that DeAndre Hopkins has to ask himself. I think that's going to be the interesting part, but there's a lot about this story we don't know. And like you said, we don't know who all is going to hop into the fray to try to sign this guy. I mean, he's a player. I mean, he can be a difference maker. So, yeah, we'll see what happens. But I've got a feeling he might want to go try to win a ring. That's the feeling I get about this whole story. I could be wrong. But that's the feeling I get.
I don't know either. I think there's two teams that could probably afford it better than others that are desperate enough that three teams, I'll say three, that he could justify that are good enough to win a Super Bowl that he feels like could put him over the edge. They're all in the AFC, which is interesting.
They're all there. Yeah, they're
but
all three of them.
The Jets, the Ravens, and the Browns. They could all probably figure out a way to do it financially. And all three of them, not as much the Ravens in the sense of like they're all in and got to push all the chips in. The Ravens are, to me, to a lesser degree than the Browns and the Packers because the Ravens, yes, they just paid their quarterback, but I don't think anybody felt like the Ravens were pushing all their chips into the middle right now with Lamar Jackson. Like that's a long-term play. The Jets have absolutely pushed it all into the middle of the table. So does DeAndre Hopkins come in and help them? Sure he does. And like if you're making the moves that the Jets are making now and it's just money that it costs you to bring him in, why on earth would you not consider it, right? A player like him, even as he's older now, and receivers don't age well, but outside of a couple injuries, he's been durable, he's been reliable, and he's one of the great receivers in the game the last decade or so. And then the Browns, for a less smart reason than the Jets, pushed all their chips into the table with Deshaun Watson, but they still did it. And if you're trying to have Deshaun Watson succeed, they have Amari Cooper there now. They just traded for Elijah Moore, who's a very talented young player. They've got money. Why wouldn't you think about bringing in Deshaun Watson for a year or two of reuniting with his former quarterback who they've had success together? And I don't know what their relationship's like. I know they had success together. But to me, those are the three teams that feel the most urgency to do it. I don't think that the Chiefs or the Bills have to do it. I think no matter whether they do it or anybody else does it, those are still the two favorites to win the Super Bowl this year, with Cincinnati right there with them. The three favorites, we'll call it. But I would still say the Chiefs and the Bills are probably more of a favorite even. But we'll see. It's going to be interesting. Hopkins has said he wants to go to a contender basically with good quarterback. And that does limit the options, right? I've heard the Lions as a dark horse candidate. The Lions are interesting, but as Jared Goff, what makes sense for DeAndre Hopkins? I don't know. This is going to be, we don't see this happen very often. And we have some big time, names still in free agency like Ezekiel Elliott, but I don't think people generally feel like Ezekiel Elliott has much left in the tank. Everybody, I think, feels like DeAndre Hopkins has enough left in the tank to have these conversations for sure.
Right. Well, I think you're right. However, I look at Detroit Lions, and the reason I kind of poo-poo that is that, Dan Campbell's kind of that old school type coach. I don't picture DeAndre.
They want to run the ball.
They want to run the ball. They want to be physical. They want to hit you in the mouth. I don't picture DeAndre Hopkins as finding that spot quite as readily with the Lions based upon who they are mentally, who they want to be, and what they want to do on the field. So I'm not sure that I'm buying the Lions. Now watch the guy sign with the Lions and prove me wrong. But the point is that I look at the Chiefs and I look at the Bills and I think to myself, you want to play for a contender, there's two teams that will contend, and both teams that really could use your services. I think it's a no-brainer. I'm not convinced about the Browns, and I'm certainly not convinced with the Ravens. And both those have what you would call a top 10 type quarterback. Both those franchises are top 10 quarterbacks. But, you only get a chance to play with Allen and with the Chiefs. With those kind of guys, a Mahomes and an Allen are two special players.
Yeah, but they can't. Man, that you'd have to take such a pay cut. Here's the other part of that.
Well, I don't know
Hopkins.
what's how much. How much is how much? I'm not sure.
They don't have any money. They don't have any money on the cap right now, and his contract is for this year. It's like $20 million almost. Like, I don't know, like, how much of a pay cut is a pay cut, right? Like, his salary right now? He signed a 2-year. $50 million contract, $54 million contract. His average salary is $27 million. So there's a massive difference between what they can afford currently and what he's scheduled to make, I think. So there's two parts of that make it seem unlikely. And I initially said, and I tweeted this right when it happened, that he's going to be a Chief. And that was based on, if you remember way back, the odds-on favorite, before there were even like official trade demands, there were odds made, and the Chiefs were pretty handily the odds-on favorite to get him if he were to get traded. And I've always filed that away because Vegas is rarely wrong, and I've just sort of filed it away. And then I think, like, if there's ever a prove it, like if you want to go prove it and get another longer-term deal, the Chiefs are the place you go. But the finances were a little bit different then, and I've sort of backed off that thought since I put the thought out there. Because I just don't know how financially on either side it could work. If it can, boy, it makes a ton of sense for both sides.
Right.
Because Hopkins would benefit greatly from playing with Mahomes, and the Chiefs could use that sort of a weapon. Because think about the receivers they do have. They don't have a true outside threat at receiver like Hopkins would provide them. It'll be interesting. I think the possibility exists still because I think it's always been there and there's been a clear desire from both parties. But it'll be tough. It'll be difficult, especially now that he's going to have the option probably just to go to the highest bidder. So we'll see. DeAndre Hopkins is a free agent. That doesn't happen very often, Paul. You don't usually see guys like him become free agents like that very often.
Yeah, but you're talking about a guy with a $22 million, hit on the cap. I mean, that's significant, my friend. That is significant.
All right, we'll take a quick break. We'll come back. More Sports Daily coming up for you right after this. Welcome back, everybody. Sports Daily. It's Albrocht and Savage on this Tuesday. Jad Chambers producing for us. Hope everybody enjoyed the holiday weekend, remembered why we have that holiday weekend in particular. It is the unofficial start of the summer. Paul, how's your summer tan? You had any pool time yet? How's this thing working for you so far?
Well, it's tough on a guy like me because you're in such demand, and after all, it's the body that I have it attracts so many females that it's hard to go to the pool because after all, I just don't need all the attention.
Right. I hear you. You're doing everyone a favor because you don't want to make everybody else at the pool jealous.
Well, that's right. Yeah, right. That Jad's smirking over here. Jad, I don't think
at what point
I don't need those smirks.
Like, at what point do we not care about that stuff either? By the way, like I'm not in good shape, man. I guess it's just like you just don't care anymore, right? You just let it all hang out and just enjoy the sun like everybody else. I like that my kids now are getting to the age where they're very close to being self-sustained in a pool. And that's a changer. We were sitting with some other parents yesterday, and I was like, man, like, can you believe we've all reached this point where we can just sort of, sit here and monitor, right? Because you have to always monitor, but you're not having to be with them. Because of course in the pool this time of year, the water is ice cold, right? Like, it's not like it's ice cold water. It's not that hot outside, and you're just like suffering through, and you can sort of survive it, and it's good. It's an interesting stage, and man, pool season, pools. Where would we be without pools?
Right, that's a blessing, my friend. Once you get to the point where you don't have to worry about your kids at a pool, that is a blessing, and that is a relief that is only known by a parent who takes a kid to the pool, and you can't take your eyes off of them up until a certain point. And once that happens, that's a blessing. And that changes everything. And by the way, those kind of changes coming up for you and your wife, there's still more to come, by the way. In fact, here's what I want. I want to be invited the first time some guy comes by to pick up your oldest daughter on a date. I want to be sitting in the house. I want to watch you invite this young man into the house and let her leave. I just want to watch and see how you handle it. I think it'll be unique experience for you, but I want to just watch. Is that possible?
Yeah, it's probably possible.
Oh, good. Okay,
it's probably possible.
Okay,
yeah.
Good.
It's
Jad's chuckling over here, but I guess my point is that if you're a father long enough, it'll happen. I hated it. I hated that moment. I absolutely despised that moment. I didn't want it to happen, and yet somehow it happened.
Well, happens to the best of us. Happy summer, everybody.
Happy
Unofficially. Happy summer.
You bet.
We'll try to keep Savage away from the pools,
well,
gentlemen.
I think that's fair. I think that's
that's fair. We need to all maintain. Real quick on the finals, Paul. We haven't talked about it in a while. Miami gets it there. What a story they've been. And I guess my last question, and then we can look forward. Are they really a Cinderella? I would say yes. I think less than their seed would indicate, but I can't shake the fact that they've been missing one of their best players this entire time, essentially, and they're still here. And, like, are they a Cinderella? And does Jimmy Butler just now at this point belong in that, postseason killer conversation where if he is playing in these games, his teams, no matter who is on them, have a chance? Because he has been really good at times. He's been, Herculean at times in that first series. And then he's been pretty good, but he's been a little up and down, and they're still right here. But, man, when it comes down to it, how many guys in basketball, if you are in this situation that they faced yesterday in a Game 7, how many guys are you going to take leading the way over Jimmy Butler right now in the NBA? I don't think it's many, and I'm not saying I think he's the best player in the league because I don't think he is. But when it comes to that it factor, he's as good as there is.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting, by the way, you bring up Jimmy Butler. How ironic it was last night to watch Jimmy Butler receive the Larry Bird player of the conference semifinals. I mean, how ironic was that? On the floor of the Boston Celtics, you get an opposing player get the Larry Bird award. But here's the thing that we got to look at. Spoelstra said it yesterday at his press conference. They're playing like a team. This is a team that has matured past the point of individuals. They are a team, a true team.
They are. We'll come back. Let's give away some Win Surge tickets, vouchers, game of your choice. First caller, 869-1240 to the IOP hotline. Jad will get us a winner. We'll wrap up this Tuesday right after this.
Looking for some of the very best brands around? Shop Pride Ag Ace Hardware.